Hi, welcome to the 9th Flying Focus Busiversary. My name is PC Peri and I'm one of the founding members of the Flying Focus Video Collective, a group which began using video as a tool for social change in 1991, and we're still here voicing the voiceless. Each year we use this week of November 18th to celebrate our anniversary of the Flying Focus Video Bus. This is the time when we look back at the programs we've produced over the last year and give you, the viewers, an idea of what we've been doing and what we look like, since normally you only see what we point our cameras at and not who is behind the cameras. This past year we produced 24 episodes of the Video Bus for a total of 19 different programs, as well as 3 speakers and events programs, which you'll hear about also. This year I spent most of my time in field training of 3 or 4 volunteers on different projects and fundraising. Each one turned out to be a different technique required in the field training, and all were learning experiences. The fundraising was just as much of a learning experience and something I never anticipated getting into, but you'd be surprised. If I can do it, so can you.
Hi, I'm Dan Handelman, and I've been with Flying Focus since we started. This past year I worked on more than half the shows that you're watching tonight, and all 6 of the programs I produced myself had to do with U.S. policy in Iraq in one way or another. Last October I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan for a conference about the sanctions on Iraq, and I taped 4 workshops. And the first one that you're going to see a clip from is about how to pass resolutions on a local level against the U.S. and UN sanctions on Iraq, or anything.
Sometimes I think, myself included, we get the idea that this issue is so clear and we're so right that anybody with half a brain has to agree with us. And that's not true. There are people with whole brains who either may actively disagree or may more likely be uninformed or may have taken in the information that's in the media from the State Department, and you know, you have to be aware of that and combat that.
You need to know the structure. You need to do some analysis of the people who make up that body so that you can figure out who you go to. And there may be one person on there who's willing to not only take on the issue, cares about it, and then will give you guidance on who you talk to when.
The resolution that we passed was, as Ms. Norris said, it was at the county level. As far as we know, it's the highest ranking elected body yet to pass a resolution. We happen to have a very progressive labor council in Santa Clara County, probably one of the most progressive in the country. They were very willing to help with the effort. They passed a resolution early on in the process, and this took us 7 months, by the way.
I was totally shocked when I found out that most of the people we met with were Republican who were supportive to lifting the sanctions on Iraq. Honestly, that was a total shock for me. So the fact that you are going and meeting with a Republican or Democrat should not stop you from going and talking to these people. And maybe with the Republicans, yes, they're going to be starting. Sometimes I question why they support, maybe because the president is Democrat, maybe because but this is good. You have to start with them. Yeah, but spending money on Iraq is hurting our economy here. That's what you're going to start with. They're not going to be so like, oh yeah, we'll lift the sanctions because it's a humanitarian cause.
The second workshop that I featured has Richard Garfield, who's a professor at Columbia University and a nurse who's been to Iraq several times. And he's taken a lot of statistical information that tells you the impact of the sanctions and how many people have been dying because of diseases that were unheard of before the sanctions were imposed in 1990.
It's hard to imagine getting less bang for your buck than we've gotten out of the Oil for Food program in terms of improvements in the social condition. That doesn't mean that I would suggest that it's useless or unimportant. It's a lifeline. I think the situation in Iraq would be far worse without it, but we have to understand the weaknesses and the dangers along the way so that the program can be improved, and there are many things that can be done to improve it, even without changing the implementation of sanctions. The procedures in the program could be greatly improved so that goods get to people when they need them, more appropriate goods get to people, Of course, improving the situation on sanctions would greatly increase the potential for the Iraqi government and the UN to make agreements so that these things would run smoothly and there would be working together on the project. First of all, the most important impact is not deaths. It's most people survive, and it's the life chances of the survivors that we have to focus on mainly. In terms of deaths, what you can say with confidence is that there has been, roughly speaking, a doubling of mortality rate among children under 5 years of age. And if you take reasonable assumptions about the numbers of children under 5 and the changes that would have or would not have occurred in the death rate before, there are at least 300,000 excess deaths.
Since 1990.
Yeah.
And that's children.
Only children.
Children under 5. And we have no means of making any reasonable estimates of deaths in other population groups. Anything among people who are over 5 years old is a guess, not an estimate.
The next workshop that you'll see was about the way Iraq is portrayed in the U.S. media, and there were 4 people on the panel who very distinctly analyzed how the United States uses the media as propaganda, really, against Iraq, to the point where people believe there's only one person that lives there, Saddam Hussein, when there are really 22 million people that live there. So you should listen carefully. The people all had a lot of really good things to say.
The second thing I want to talk about is structural or institutional factors which shape the news. And there's a lot of literature and research on this. There's a lot of things one could say about it. The one thing I want to highlight in the case of Iraq is the overwhelming reliance, and I would almost use the term addiction, of American mainstream journalists on official sources. You have to understand the pressure in the day-to-day workings of a mainstream newsroom to rely on official sources. And in this case, it means almost exclusively State Department, Pentagon, White House. That is, it's built into the structure of the American newsroom.
I think that the Three Kings is a fictional corollary to Kerry's argument, which draws on this incredibly dangerous and intensely racist tradition of colonial and Orientalist discourse. And as a result of that, I have to tell you, it could hardly be more politically damaging to the anti-sanctions, anti-intervention movement or reactionary, even though it humanizes the Iraqis and depicts Islam as a great faith.
When you talk about Saddam Hussein as if that was the only person who lives in Iraq, you not just obscure the suffering of the Iraqi people, you obscure their existence. It's as if they don't exist. And one of the most awful examples of this was in an editorial in the San Francisco Chronicle, which started like this. Once again, the durable despot, Saddam Hussein, has emerged from the bomb rubble, spitting defiance and claiming victory after surviving 4 days of US and British airstrikes. So it's as if bombing doesn't even kill people. It's sort of like a cartoon. You can imagine, he gets out and dusts himself off. And this is really something that pervades the media coverage.
This last workshop from the Ann Arbor conference had to do with how faith communities are organizing against the sanctions on Iraq, and there were 2 Christians and 2 Muslims on the panel, and they gave a lot of insights about how you could get people organized to stop the horrible things that are happening because of the sanctions.
In the off season, as it were, I've really talked to pastors, and some of them have told me that they were really offended by what we were doing. And I explained to them, what do you want us to do? You're the faith community. You have a responsibility. You're not preaching it from your pulpit. You're not teaching it in your Sunday school. Somebody needs to raise the issue. And that, I found, has worked.
This child was hit by shrapnel, which is still penetrated inside of his body. And we have a project in our organization called Project Life, where we bring Iraqi children to America for surgeries. We are trying to bring this child here to America for surgery. We go into the non-Muslim communities to seek help. In fact, all 5 children that we brought over the past 2 years have been by non-Muslim physicians. They have donated their time. The hospitals, we actually had one child here in Ann Arbor for some time who had lived for about 1 year having a series of surgeries.
It is extremely difficult to make the voice of the issues that have to do with humanitarian needs that are caused by our government extremely difficult to get that through in our churches. And we have a responsibility, those of us who have been touched by the spirit of love and compassion and justice, to make these issues known.
There is verses in the Quran that it says, if you see something wrong going on as a human being, and you see, or there is a truth that has to be spoken, and you kept silent, you are like a devil who is silent. And also, Prophet Muhammad taught us, if you saw something going on wrong, you have to change it by your hand. And if you can't, you change it by your eyes. And if you can't, you change it by your heart. And that is the weakest point of faith, when you can't change it by your heart, but at least you can change it by your heart.
Hi, I'm Kyle Yamada. I did 3 video bus programs in Y2K. 2 of them deal with protests and the emerging movement against corporate control of virtually everything. The first is about the World Trade Organization protests that went down in Seattle late in '99. The second is about the Democratic Convention protests that happened in August of 2000. We'll get to those in a moment, but first I wanted to show some clips from a benefit that I taped for Outside In. They're an organization that helps homeless youth here in Portland get off the street and get their lives together. So this will give you a little bit of an idea of what they're about and how to get involved.
And just for your information, there's about, depends on whose study you look at, there's about 1,500 to 3,000 different faces, homeless youth on the street every year. It's an appalling number, and it's pretty disgusting that we have that as part of our society, but that's the way it is. We also provide support services, social atmosphere for gay, lesbian, and questioning youth. About 1/3 of the kids on the street are in that category. A lot of them get kicked out of their homes because of that.
If you're interested in Outside In, there are places for you to volunteer and to work both with clients and behind the scenes, a little tiny bit, a lot. So John is our volunteer coordinator. Please come up and talk with him at any time, or myself, Trevor, and we'd be glad to hook you up and get you busy.
I
think that helped grab the attention of the world. The fact that the protests brought the city to a stop, halted traffic, stopped the opening ceremonies, and stopped the WTO meeting.
Do you think that could have happened without the vandalism?
Yeah, actually I do. I think, sit-down strikes would have worked as well. But it couldn't have happened without occupying some of the intersections the way people did. And they were very brave to do that.
Okay, we had this held because the center area was clear. Clear the center area and hold a line.
People are allowed to express themselves, but hopefully the meeting will continue on because it's an important meeting.
It's going to probably stink for 10 to 15 minutes if it happens. Okay? Rinse your eyes out with water or milk. Don't rub them.
more secure and we're more free because of our leadership in the world for peace, freedom, and prosperity.
They're still spending just as much money in the military, and even more money.
Bringing the Middle East closer than ever to a comprehensive peace.
The whole notion of free trade has been embraced really strongly by the new Democrats like Al Gore and Bill Clinton.
I thank you for supporting the new Democratic agenda.
The way they phrase it makes it sound great, but the barriers to free trade constitute things like labor and environmental regulations.
We're also more hopeful because we ended welfare as we knew it.
Welfare reform has really created a tragedy for women and children. There are time limits that throw women off after 2 years, even if they don't have a job.
Now those who can work must work.
They require women to go right back to work into any job, whether it pays enough, whether they have health insurance, whether there's child care for their kids.
We are a more secure country because we cut crime with tougher enforcement, more than 100,000 new community police officers.
I don't think that putting 150,000 more policemen on the street is going to do anything about the drug problem. It's just going to create bigger and better prisons.
On that, we and the Republicans agree.
We have more homeless children than ever before, and to me that's criminal.
Now that's the purpose of prosperity.
In the name of all the working families who are the strength and soul of America, I accept your nomination for president.
I think it's a movement is building, and I'm very excited because it's great to see all the young people. You know, we've been doing this for an awful long time, and it's just great to see all these young people coming in and taking over the movement.
I think that there's many more youth than people give credit for that actually do give a damn, and that's why we're all out here. If you've seen the protests, like a great majority is the youth. We do care.
Quite honestly, I'm feeling that this event is a little bit of an anticlimax. Without activism at a local level where you're actively sort of working to create justice, economic justice, especially in your own community, something like this isn't going to make any difference at all.
Don't be discouraged by, especially if you're new to the political scene, don't be discouraged because it's just like anything in life. You're going to have some things that don't work out, but you're always going to have victories. But the important thing is that you're doing what you believe.
The vision for the movement is being able to come together. Each person has an issue that is of deep concern to them, but the other piece of it is folks see how their issues are connected, and that we're building a strong collective.
You know, things do change. It unfortunately takes far too long, but things really do change. This will work.
Hi, I'm Barb Greene, and this next show also features people who are or have been homeless. These are members of the writers group at Street Roots reading poetry at the Multnomah County Library.
Our first poet this evening is going to be Ron Kite, and Ron is a Street Roots vendor and a longtime contributor, longtime member of the writers group. He's originally from Oakland. His favorite poets include Langston Hughes and Edgar Allan Poe. And he has been quoted as saying, homelessness is an issue that will never go away, and it affects everyone directly and indirectly if you are compassionate. So how about a big welcome for Ron Kite.
Good evening. My name is, as you already know, Ron Kite. And I have some poems that come from my heart pertaining to the rain, pertaining to nature, pertaining to travesties, and pertaining to earth, devastating earth hazards throughout the world. The first one is called We All Need Each Other. We all need each other, come hell or high water, drop the culture division, stop the bickering and the arrogance. We all need each other. People are searching for truth. People are searching for meaning. Politicians needing voters. We all need each other. People needing family. We all need each other. Lovers needing satisfaction. The whole damn world is hurting. Why do we fight each other? Why do we destroy life? Why do we create strife when we are all in this together? Thank you.
These next two programs have to do with Measure 9, an initiative on the Oregon state ballot this year. They have to do with an OCA measure that says that nothing having to do with homosexuality or bisexuality can be presented in a public school in a manner which encourages, promotes, or sanctions such behaviors. The first show, called Come Out and Campaign, is a workshop where volunteers are being trained in how to go door to door and speak to potential voters. The second one isn't actually a video bus, but a speakers and events show, a little bit longer show, features religious leaders from the community who are speaking out against this measure.
I'm here because I've been an educator and a school counselor for many years, and I feel very strongly about this issue. And I feel that it's very important to stand up and take a stand and do what needs to be done to make our schools safe for all students.
I'm here because I want to fight the OCA. People shouldn't be able to discriminate against other people. And how I feel about canvassing is I'm very nervous.
I feel a real obligation to make sure that we put a stop to anything that would cause discrimination in the state of Oregon.
I'm a guy who is an old civil rights organizer who lived in Chicago during the time that a whole lot of stuff was going on in the 60s. He was telling me all about his experiences there and gave me a whole spiel on injustice and the connections of oppression, and he wants to volunteer.
I actually talked to an 89-year-old woman who is a two because she's just not able to volunteer, but she gave me the name of the woman who organized churches against the OCA's last ballot measure. And they've talked about this one and feels that this woman would really like to get involved in campaigns.
So the first store I went to, the woman was one and wrote me a check almost immediately.
I had so much fun. It's like, there's so much support out there.
Together we gather here tonight with good purpose. For too long, there have been those in our state who have used our religious traditions as an excuse to discriminate against people. This year, they have offered the voters of our state a ballot measure that would tear apart our schools, ruin counseling programs, and harm our children. Tonight, we are part of an unprecedented gathering of people of faith committed to defeating Measure 9.
This next show is a lecture and slideshow by Carol Adams, the author of The Sexual Politics of Meat. In this program, she compares the oppression of women to the oppression of animals. So let's take a look.
80% of slaughterhouse jobs are held by immigrants, people of color, and white women. They are often the ones who mediate our relationship to the natural world, and they suffer the highest rate of employee injury. It's a filthy business. We don't want to be personally responsible, so we let the not A's do it. As one Black woman health activist said, it's not as though they chose between this and going to college.
So that's the end of this week's show. Thank you so much for joining us, and please tune in again next week for part 2 of our 9th Busiversary. If you'd like to get involved in Flying Focus, or if you'd like to get on our mailing list and receive our newsletter, here are a couple phone numbers to call, 503-239-7456 or 503-321-5051.
Join us next week.
Join us next week for part 2.